How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. I get both y'all to step up here for me. I'm Lieutenant Sybil. I'm our admin lieutenant. I'm stepping in for Chief Tattoo tonight. Kind of just a quick introduction. This is Officer Charlie Sandoval. He comes to us. He recently graduated from the Dallas County Community College Law Enforcement Academy. Prior to law enforcement, Officer Sandoval worked in loss prevention for 10 years, and he joined the Army Reserve, where he is still currently active. We thank him for his service there. Officer Sandoval will be pinned by his wife, Maciel. And then Officer Gregory Churchill, he comes to us from New Mexico. He has 10 years of law enforcement experience there, working for their civil division. Officer Churchill has worked in many different fields throughout his adult life, owning many businesses and just doing other things in the area. He is going to be our Cross Oaks Elementary SRO, and he will be pinned by his wife, Sarah.
Okay. Well, welcome to Oak Point, gentlemen. And we have I'll just let you read right off of it. We can have it reversed.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, so.
Okay, I, Charlie Sandoval, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of police officer in the city of Oak Point, Denton County, in the state of Texas, and will do my best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
All right. Badge, or read it second?
She's on.
Okay.
I, Gregory Churchill, do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of police officer in the city of Oak Point, Denton County, in the state of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God.
No injuries reported in the stabbing things here. And welcome to Oak Point. Welcome to Oak Point. Thanks, sir.
Gentlemen,
Thank you.
thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
On to item 7, items of community interest.
We have the 2 items coming up next month in October. We have our annual community garage sale on Saturday, October 5th. If you are interested in being on the list of properties having a garage sale, please fill out the form that we have on the website, or we have them out here in the lobby at City Hall. You fill those out, pay a $3 fee, and then we add you to the list. Anybody can be part of the garage sale. You don't have to register to be part of it. It's just if you want to be on the list that goes out to the public, then you would want to register. We also have, on the following Saturday, we have a citywide cleanup on October 12th. And as usual, we will have the dumpsters available for people to drop things off. We'll have shredding going on from 9 to 12. And we'll have the household hazardous waste in the parking lot across the street from 9 to 12. If you want to utilize the household hazardous waste drop-off, you do need to email Judy Hall at dentoncounty.gov and ask her for a voucher. Okay, the county graciously funds that event for us. CEQ does not put it on for free, so the county accounts for how many dollars are being spent through the voucher system. So you can find all that information on the website, on Facebook, or in the newsletter on the website. That's all I have.
Okay, item 8, public input. I've got 2 applications here. Bob Johnson, who I don't see, unless it's a different Bob Johnson than I know. He may be later. And Frank Sliveth, it doesn't say what you want to speak about, but you can speak now or when your item comes up.
It's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
My name is Frank Suddeth. My wife and I have lived in Sapphire Ridge since 1997. Until early this year, the lot next door to us was vacant. Right now, the Benavides family is building a house over there. In August, they brought their travel trailer in, set it up on the property with the intention of living in it until their house was completed. It was going to allow them to, see what's going on with the progress of building their house. And I felt like it would be nice to have them there for security. Construction sites, you always want to have a little extra security if you can. And I was looking forward to getting to know my neighbors sooner rather than later. But soon after they placed the camper there, they received a citation for breaking some city ordinance that says you can't sleep or live in a vehicle. Apparently, the interpretation of the word vehicle includes a recreational vehicle, which is designed to temporarily live in. And I'm just a little disappointed that my neighbors were not able to do that. I'm also concerned that with that interpretation, I can't go spend the night in my camper, in my yard. All of us who have RVs can't spend the night in our camper if our air conditioning goes out in the house, or there's some other kind of emergency that would be well suited to that. It would also mean that we couldn't invite family and friends to come spend time with us in their RV. So what I would like to see is, if possible, is if we're going to interpret that ordinance that way, if we change how we interpret it, that's fine, because all it says is living in a vehicle is not permitted. If we can't change our interpretation of it somehow, some way, I would like to see if we can change that ordinance to allow ourselves to spend the night in our RV. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we can address that in factual. I don't believe they received a citation. And the ordinance actually says you can only reside in a structure that's on a permanent foundation. RVs are not permanent foundations. We don't prohibit anyone from spending the night in their RV or their family pulling up and spending the night in the RV. But these folks intended to live in the RV while the house is under construction. So there were complaints from the neighbors. It was addressed.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 9. Presentation and discussion of the following reports. Financial report for August 2024. Anybody have any questions?
I have one question. I see lots of more charges on our credit cards. Everybody knows what everybody, lots of people have a credit card. Do we get any kind of points or kickbacks or bannings or whatever on those cards?
No.
That's just what I heard. Okay, that's all.
So I had a question about the uptick in fees or revenue from short-term rentals. Is that because of the summer, or we have more properties?
I think, have about 6 now. There was a new one that came in that hasn't had anything this past quarter. They did fairly well this summer, not a lot.
Okay.
They weren't full, that's for sure, maybe a few days in a week.
All right, so 6 in the whole city is not much. I think it's 4 last time I heard.
Yeah. We had one lady that she took hers off for about a year. I think she rented it to someone, but then they moved out and she would put it back on. But
Okay.
Are they all paying?
yes, I always send a reminder out. They're due quarterly, so like this last one was due the end of July, so I usually send them an email by the 1st of July, reminding them that, the payment's due by the end of July. And so, they're all on time.
All right, so investment report for the second quarter. Any questions about that? All right, municipal court report for August 24. Any questions for that? Permits reports for August 24.
Where's it down, the franchises, figure out, how it counts out.
Okay, public safety report for July 24. Questions?
I have a question.
Okay,
Sean, can you pull up page 56 of the agenda minutes, PDF page 56? Yeah, can you ask me? I'm trying to- So, below mine, I see school zone 15 to 20 over and a W next to it. Sure, that's not just a warning, it's a chief.
I believe that would be, I would double check on that.
I think people need to benefit of the job, but not in the school zone. It's my take, that somebody speaking in the school zone, they don't all get hit. Especially if they're 15 to 20 over.
According to that, should be a warning. I have to double check if there are any other like extenuating circumstances.
You know, there's always start with a violation, then get a warning for special cases, but it starts with the tough things, instead of starting with a warning. Anyway, I don't like warnings in the school zones. That's the first time I said it.
I'll double check and I'll review it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
all right, fire report for July.
Scott, just one second. Since we were on the subject of short-term rentals, is there any anecdotal or information regarding any incidents on short-term rentals from the Department of Public Safety perspective? Over the summer? Things been relatively quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Use that one more time.
Say that things been relatively quiet regarding short-term rentals over the summer. Any?
Everything was pretty good. We had a couple issues, I want to say it was in the spring. We resolved those pretty quick. Everything after that, the summer really went really well. We had a lot of complaints.
Good. Thank you.
All right, fire report for July 24. Any questions? All right, now we'll go to one for me, item 10 report from the council.
Excuse me, I think we had one more report from the DPS.
Under here, Officer Horn, is going to give a short presentation regarding the impact of stress on first responders and how the department is combating that and providing resources.
Here.
Hello, Council. You know me as Officer Dustin Horn. I serve various roles within our community and department. Tonight, I'm acknowledging September being Suicide Prevention Month, and I'd like to bring some attention to the often overlooked topic of first responder mental health. The mental health and well-being of first responders is crucial and often overlooked. It's important that we take time to recognize and discuss this topic. Tonight, specifically, we are talking about stress and trauma. I don't think anyone in this room has to let their mind wander very far to imagine the traumas the first responder may experience. So I've listed a few examples on the board. Dispatchers, police, firefighters, and EMTs respond to critical incidents every day. We see firsthand how trauma can be detrimental to a person's well-being when it's not handled properly, yet we often don't seek help for ourselves when it's needed. A first responder's ability to bounce back from trauma is usually greater than the average person, but everyone has a limit. Unfortunately, we often hesitate to seek help due to feelings of pride or fear of encountering the stigmas associated. It's important to recognize that the average non-first responder will likely experience 2 to 4 crisis incidents in their lifetime. A first responder, 200 to 800 events in their career. Next, I have a brief video discussing the impacts of stress, stigmas, and the result of the lack of support from the community and departments that can happen. I think you'll find it interesting, the statistics in the video.
After working for 20 plus years as a police officer, not having backup is kind of scary. While I was trying to heal from the traumas that had put me in the position that I was in, I suddenly lost all the support of all the guys I worked with.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that we don't picture it in our head. I never thought that I would have to deal with that type of call, and I was not prepared.
I remember the moment I was like, okay, I was up all night. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma. You know, the novelty of the job wore off really quick.
They didn't offer any help. They said I needed to see a psychiatrist, that there was probably nothing wrong with me, that I was just being a baby about it.
I couldn't think of how to get help without ruining my job.
I know personally, on many occasions, that a police officer can go in and ask for help, and the chief fire.
They forced me to resign because they just could not understand how that could affect me since I was just a dispatcher.
I just thought to myself, if I can't do this job, what can I do? What else? I put all the eggs in this basket. Who am I if I'm not a firefighter?
Yeah, 4 years till retirement, and I gotta be okay, and I gotta make it.
Pretty strong.
So, the documentary does not end well. Their departments didn't support a lot of them. I think only one of them would make it out okay. What we're doing here is we're utilizing Overwatch peer support and the Texas Law Enforcement Peer Network, which I'll discuss further in the next couple of slides. We're developing procedures for an in-house peer support team. This team will have an automatic response to specific high priority calls. Research shows that offering support quickly, which would be from 8 to 10 hours after an incident, can aid in recovery. Diffusing and critical incident stress debriefings can stop onset stress-related disorders, including PTSD. The embarkation process, as we're calling it, that we recently created, is used to inform new officers about what our processes are, what their role is regarding their own well-being, and provides them with tools of stress management techniques such as tactical breathing, which I can do on scene. We have started reaching out to our veteran officers to discuss what support options they have available to them as well. Overwatch is a local peer support group for all first responder professionals, includes dispatch, corrections, civilian employees of law enforcement agencies, fire, EMS personnel, as well as a monthly family peer support group. It's great that we can provide options for our civilian employees, such as our code and evidence technician and administrative assistant, who are sometimes tasked with thoroughly examining our reports. So they're having to go through vicarious trauma and see what we're seeing because they're having to do open records request. Next, we have the Texas Law Enforcement Peer Network. It's a statewide program. They have the Blue Chip program, which was started after the Allen incident. This allows services for officers to reach out at no cost to them for clinical services. Don't quote me, but I believe TLEPN is now working on extending over to fire services as well. Texas has generally led the nation as one of the top 5 in officer suicides. This year, Texas Law Enforcement Peer Network has reached out to peer supporters and let us know that suicide rates among police officers in Texas are down 64%. They are also showing that there is an ironclad connection between the emotional competence of a police officer and the quality of service they provide in the community. We have talked a lot about critical incident traumas, but there's also financial stress. As we all know, financial stress has impacted many households in 2024. We are proud to announce that we have joined the National Police Credit Union, which now offers membership to our department's personnel. They offer various financial services to our officers, including financial counseling. What's unique is that staff are current and former police officers who understand what our officers are going through and can provide guidance. I've been told soon that they'll be reaching out for fire departments as well. I think it's crucial for us to recognize that our people are our most valuable assets, and it's our responsibility to ensure we have options for their well-being and care. As we move forward, I want to continue to strengthen our newly established relationships with these support groups, which everything we've discussed tonight, I'll let you know, has cost the city nothing. They're all free. I'm grateful that we have a chief. Chief Tattoo has supported me in getting these resources and programs for our department and citizens. And due to this, I've made many wonderful connections, not only for our department, but by reaching out to these organizations that have also got resources for our veterans within our city and also our citizens. I'm proud to serve the Oak Point community, knowing that I have the support of the council and the citizens that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, as I mentioned before the executive session, I suspected Councilman Wiki would be late, and that was the case, as he is now present. And then on to item 10, report from council liaison on park, which is me. There was a discrepancy in the pickleball court bid docked, and resulting in another month postponement. That is in the consent agenda and was amply explained of how that could have happened by both Steve and Brad. So so it's looking like November before those documents are looked at, or those bids are looked at. And for the ramp area, as everybody's probably aware, we have that grant received from TPNW, and we have to start spending that money eventually, or we won't get it. So Brad is looking for some kind of builder or consultant. As much as I hate to think of a consultant, it is a very complicated project, and so they're looking for somebody to get help on the design work there, and maybe start that rolling in the spring. Well, no, that's part of another thing. The kayak launch was replaced, and there's some discussion on when to reinstall it, and we think it probably got the worst beating in the winter storms because of the exposure from the north. So that I think the idea now is to install it in the spring, uninstall it in the fall, and do that routine until we get the new ramp or the new dock, courtesy dock installed on the south side where it's protected year round. And then there's a discussion of what to do with this dead tree, or it's not quite dead, but it's like a Y. And here's the tree that Crossroads had carved up in their park. It's very beautiful carving. It's 30 feet tall and it has all these animals all over it. And the park board is interested in doing something like that, but it could be expensive. They're going to get the guy who did that to come in and give a quote on what he might be able to do it for, but it would probably be 5 acres. And more discussion follow on that before any decisions are made. That's it for park. And now we go to Greg for EDC.
Thank you, Scott. I would just start with Jack Brown has been on a quest to get a question answered, and he's come before council and then EDC, and finally got to the bottom of it that it was actually parks that had a line on some federal grants for helping support the sidewalks and cart paths and things, and those those opportunities will come again around in January of 2025, so Candy Risher of Parks is on it, and we'll get something moving on that for any opportunities we have for federal grants for pathways. We had, so I guess the next thing is our next half joint meeting is coming up on October 22nd. We were hoping to get some update from Jason at Catalyst, and we've actually, the board gave some directive to staff that we would like to get more direct input from Jason on a monthly basis, and also personal presentations on a quarterly basis, just so we have more regular communication with him on the pace of what's going on in terms of our retail endeavors. Next was Wayfair signage. Constant discussion. It's going to be completed, we're told, at the end of September. More updates when we see signs actually out there. And then I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And so on to the consent agenda. Item 11, consider and act upon the minutes for the August 5th, 21st, and 28th, 2024 City Council meetings. And item 12, consider and act to approve pulling the bid for the pickleball courts and authorize republishing of the bid. Is there anybody who wants to pull either of those two items?
I think I've got to change it to the minutes. I'm going to pull it out now or just discuss it now.
You can just tell us.
Can you pull up page 82, John? 82? Well, first of all, we'll pull up, I'll pull item 11.
Okay, so item, Councilman Lusk has requested to pull item 11, and then leaving only item 12. Do we have a vote? All right, sorry, we have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of item 12.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Councilman Lusk and Councilman Kirk, first and second motions. Is there any more discussion on that item? No, so a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so then we'll discuss item 11.
Okay, so it's item number 12 on the 21st meeting. So then we pull item 12 off of the minutes from the first. One, that didn't have the vote count. Back up, you were there, not that far, halfway. I think it's this one, right? No, where is it?
The site plan was pulled for discussion.
Yeah.
It was pulled others.
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
Put that on.
Okay, so yes, the vote count is wrong. 'Cause it
Yeah,
was-
that's what I thought.
Yeah, okay, I can correct that.
That was what, 7 of it's in, right?
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes with the correction submitted by Councilman Lusk?
I'll make that motion.
Lusk makes the motion, and is there a second?
I'll second.
And Vasquez, Councilman Vasquez. Seconds, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to the regular agenda, item 13, consider and act upon an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 City of Oak Point budget. And Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There is a presentation. We'll flip real quick. don't think you're in the right one, Jim. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the agenda item for the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. I think I say this every year, but this is the most important thing you do every year is adopt your fiscal budget. We started this process 6 months ago in May, and here we are in September looking to adopt it. Figure out how to make the same answer. Okay. So looking again at some property tax value for valuable history for some of our audience members. 2017, our property values were roughly $340 million. Fiscal year 25, this year, we valued it, we certified out at $1,003,028,439. Quite a bit of increase over the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 years. That was a 10.93% increase over fiscal year 24. This isn't working very well. There we go. This sheet's a little too small to read, but this is our general fund summary. Just put that up there for most of your, we'll look at it. Here's kind of a condensed summary of that sheet. Our total revenues, including transfers in from the PID. So for your total budget was $9,719,759. We had total expenditures of $8,143,873. Giving us revenue over expenditures of $1.5,922. We had transfers out of $1.5 million, which gave us a net change in fund balance of $322. Our estimated fund balance ending 10/30 for this fiscal year would be $505.4 million. The requirement for 25% of reserves is $2.1 million. Giving fund balance in excess of reserves of roughly $4 million. Looking at your general fund revenues, where we come about our $9.7 million, 422 taxes, 35,000 delinquent tax, sales taxes roughly 600,000, franchise fees, that's your cable, internet, cell phone, anything that's in our right of way, utilities, etc. Republic's trucks driving on our streets. So $628,600. License permit fees, $855,000. Interest income, $725,000. Fines and seizures, $208,000. Public safety contracts, that's our contracts with Cross Oak Ranch, the school districts for SROs, roughly $2 million. Miscellaneous income, and then the public improvement district's fair share for public safety services. Overall, total revenues are $9,719,759. Looking at it as a pie, so property tax revenues are about 43% of our budget. That's down. I was looking earlier today. Last year we were at about 46%. So we're trending. We'd like to keep the property tax down to the residents. But that is still our biggest portion of our budget, followed by the PID's fair share, which was 12%, which in comparing last year, they were also at 12% as well of their fair share of the budget. And those are really our big contributors. Past that, most are 7, 8, 9%, somewhere in there. Public safety contracts are also 12%. I can get this to advance. Looking at expenditures, admin is $1.7 million. Public safety, fire is $2.2 million. Police is $3.1 million, roughly $3.2. Public works is $441,000. Non-departmental expenses, things like where we pay our audits and things like that from, electric bills, $569,000. It gave us total expenditures of $8.1 million, which was $434,000 over or under our revenues. Then we come into our PID fair share, so we have a transfer in of 1.1 million for PID transfers. That's the monies that come in from the PID to pay their fair share portion of public safety. Then we transferred out 1.35 million to capital improvements, 100 reserves. I'm sorry, 150,000 out to equipment reserves, 50,000 out to building renovation funds, and 25,000 out to building reserves, which was $433. But you subtract that total transfer from the revenue that we had over our expenditures, so 434 minus 433, and we had $322.
Where are we gonna invest that money?
I was thinking, economy, short-term assets.
Carving that tree.
Give $322 toward carving the tree. So looking again at that as a pie chart, obviously public safety, police and fire are your two biggest departments. Fire's 23%, PD's 33%, admin's 18%, and just kind of moves down from there. So there you go. Your proposed fiscal year budget for fiscal year 25 is $9,719,759.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance adopted in the fiscal year 2024-2025, City of Oak Point.
Second.
All right. Councilman Bestich has made the first motion to approve it, and Councilman Lusk has seconded it. Is there any discussion? Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Okay,
Go back to that,
number
John.
14, consider an act upon ratifying the property tax revenue increase reflected in the fiscal year 2024 City of Oak Point budget. Again, Steve.
It got intentionally turned off.
Sorry.
And just leave it going. So this is ratifying the tax increase, local government code 102.05A says that the city proposed budget to include a tax increase as compared to the previous year. You must ratify that budget. We have to have a statement on our budget saying that this budget will raise more local property taxes than last year by $458,000 or 11.9%. Of that amount, $374,850 is tax revenue to be raised from new property tax. And as the budget will raise more revenue than taxes in the previous year, and granted, $84,000 is generated from existing property taxes. $374,000 or roughly $375,000 was property that wasn't on our tax rolls last year. Is new property taxes. But again, Section 102.07C. Texas Local Government Code also requires the council to take a separate vote to ratify the tax increase. So not only asking you to adopt your budget, it's a tax increase, they want you to ratify it to say that you really mean it.
Can you clarify something I'm reading in Donna's note?
Sure.
Regarding legal obligations and review. Looks to me like it says that our tax rate is no new taxes rate. Is that accurate?
I don't see that, but that is not accurate.
I'm reading description of agenda item. On the third paragraph, the combined tax rate is less than the voter approval tax rate and less than the no new revenue rate.
It is less than the voter approved tax rate, but it is not less than the no new revenue rate. I'll go to my next slide. The no new revenue rate was 40.409359. you could have adopted the voter approval tax rate of 0.441238. This is kind of falling down the agenda, but we were recommending 4.3, which is less than the voter approval, but it is more than the no new revenue. So
Yeah, and that's what I recall from our
Right.
previous discussion. So this is erroneous, is that what I'm?
it's incorrect. If I'm still not finding where it says that, but I believe you that it does.
Are you on agenda? What was the step?
16, page 108. Agenda item 16.
Which paragraph?
Third paragraph, description of agenda item, third paragraph, right above budget impact.
Is that the next agenda item?
Yeah, it's agenda item 16.
Yeah. We can address that in agenda item 16, and at this point, I think we need to ratify the tax increase on the budget.
So I'll make a motion on item 14 to get us rolling there, we can discuss further and vote. That motion is to approve ratifying the property tax revenue increase reflected in the fiscal year 2024-2025 city of Oak Point budget.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Lewis, make the motion, and seconded by Councilman Weiler.
So now we can discuss some more.
Further discussion on this one? No. All in favor? Yay? Nay? Yay.
Yes.
All in favor, say yay.
Aye.
Aye. That's what I'm trying to. It passed unanimously. On to 15, public hearing to hear comments on the City of Oak Point proposed property tax rate for 2024 at 6.56. Anybody want to speak? Looks like no. We'll close it at 6:57, the quickest minute, really. And moving on to 16, consider an act on an ordinance adopting the City of Oak Point 2024 property tax rate. Steven.
So thank you, Mayor and Council. So the property tax code says that you have to adopt, first you have to adopt your budget, then you have to adopt a property tax rate that will satisfy the budget that you adopted. This fiscal year, we received our certified values. Our no new revenue rate, or what we used to call the effective rate, was 40 cents roughly, almost 41 cents. Your voter approved tax rate, which is the maximum amount that you guys could have adopted without risking any kind of a rollback election, was 44.441238. The de minimis rate was 0.458316. And staff recommended a rate of 0.43 cents, which is keeping the rate steady at what it was the previous fiscal year, which was sufficient to fund the budget for fiscal year 25. And if we had a mistake in here, I think I'm seeing it. It is correct if it's saying we're adopting the no new revenue rate. We are not.
Okay, Jeff has something?
Yeah, if I could add, the rate is I believe the rate's going to stay the same as the previous year. Nonetheless, the legislature, I guess in their infinite wisdom, has given you motion language that says, I move that the property tax rate be increased. And I believe you have that language. That's statutory. You're not increasing the tax rate. But nonetheless, one of you have to make a motion that says we're increasing the tax rate. And what I'm understanding, what you're about to do is it's going to be 43 cents. It was 43 cents last year. And that's so there's not an increase in the tax rate. Nonetheless, you got to make a motion to increase the tax rate. The motion has to say that given more revenues coming into the city, given the new value that's gone into the city.
I'm confused. So what's the deal with this one here? Bring it out of work. The fiscal year 2023. This is not never mind.
Yeah, that was some history of tax rates. I had not.
And on that note, I'll make a motion. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $0.43 per $100 valuation, which is effectively a 0% increase in the tax rate.
Second the motion.
All right, Councilman Lusk made the motion to approve 16, seconded by Councilman Bastich. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm gonna support this because though I don't want to see an increase in the tax rate, I do understand we're close, tight on our budget to make that keep this tax rate. I do think, and thank you to the city, that we all receive the benefit of spending $200,000 on tree growers. Some people maybe not benefit from that, so benefit from that and so forth, but I didn't want to see an increase. But, you know, I think the city deserves in this instance. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, then we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, moving on to 17. Consider and act upon adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 Oak Point Economic Development Corporation budgets. David.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is the Type B Corporation. It collects a half-cent sales tax within the city to fund economic development. Their anticipated revenues for this year are $283,000. They have proposed expenditures of $238,990, and they have revenue over expenditures of their budget for this fiscal year of $44,310. With that, I can answer any questions.
I have one question. I don't know what's going on there. Green light going on. 68,000, what incentives was that?
That was an incentive that was provided to a local restaurant that was to be paid back with sales tax.
That's closed.
Okay.
All right, we'll have a motion.
I make a motion to approve adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 Oak Point Economic Development Corporation budget.
Second. Okay, so Councilman Bastich made the motion for 17 approval, and Councilman Weiler seconded it. Is there any further discussion? Looks like no. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again. On to 18. Consider an act upon adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 Oak Point Municipal Development District budget. Steven.
Once again, Mayor and Council, this is the Municipal Development District, or which I might hear is just referred to as the MDD. It collects a quarter-cent sales tax collection. The difference between it and the EDC is obviously a quarter of a penny, but the MDD also is able to collect sales tax within our extraterritorial jurisdiction. So giving it a smaller amount, it collects from a wider area. So its proposed projected revenue collections was $275,000. They have proposed expenditures of $129,215. And they have revenue over under expenditures of $145,785. And staff recommends approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 Oak Point Municipal Development District budget.
I second the motion.
All right, Councilman Lusk made the motion to approve 18, and Councilman Bastich seconded. Any further discussion? Nope. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On the 19th, presentation on facilities needs assessment by Randall Scott Architects.
Here's a presentation. That's on there. Do you have that PowerPoint or just want to do it in the PDF?
I have a PDF.
Okay, I have the PDF.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a PDF on that
John,
Yeah. Yeah, a little flash drive, right? I don't think that's my garage.
Learn something today. One three-way switch. Don't let me rewire a man from Milestone Electric.
You have the
told me
PDF?
not to do that again.
I do actually.
I put it on that flash drive, but somebody didn't make it in here.
Let's see. It's the one that starts with final.
Yeah, so get it to the full view up in the top right corner.
And do you have a clicker, or are you gonna drive for me there?
Will clicker take it through that on the PDF?
Let's see.
Yeah, but it's not on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well.
There we go. Perfect. All right. Good evening, Mayor Council. My name is Preston Scott. I'm principal at Randall Scott Architects. I've been working with Stephen and staff for quite a while now, actually, to do a facility master plan for you all. And in order to do that, you have to kind of start building your understanding of the city and what's unique about it. And so I want to take you through the process that we went through and share with you at the end of it some of the findings. I understand also that this is the very beginning of what could be a long tenured process. So this is a starting point for you all. This is a discussion launching point. I'm here, I can answer any kind of questions you have. This process is not a simple one. We worked with the city of Anna, who I think we started with them in 2015 and finished their project just last year. It was 2 buildings, but they went through a needs assessment, kind of starting with what I'm going to show with you tonight. And that process went through COVID and supply chain, and you can kind of understand how that project drug on for about 7 years. But it's a beautiful project, and it's really their long-term home. So for you guys, I want to start with a brief history of the project to date and how we got to where we are, and then the processes that we went through. So the programming, the space needs, the site options that we looked at, then take you into site plans and floor plans, and then really the one that everyone wants to know is what's it going to cost, and then how do we get there, get from this point to a building we can actually walk into and grow into. So let me take you through those. I'm happy for this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, not everybody's familiar with building projects and how this whole process works. So if you have questions, feel free to ask me as we go. If not, we'll have some Q&A at the end and I can answer that for you. So project history. The current building, one that we're in right now, has really grown into quite a Swiss Army knife for you all. You have a lot of services here. This portion was built 12 years ago. Seems to be in pretty good condition still. And being next to the park creates a feeling of security with police there. So I think that's something that we heard as we went through the process. I think the new addition on this building, I say new, it's 12 years old, but the newest of the building components has a strong brand and identity for the city. So you actually have kind of a starting architectural image to work from. which is always a good thing. And when it was built, my understanding, and I think you can kind of tell from the space that's left available at this point, it was designed and really built for the current needs at the time, right? It was, you may call it reactive, of we need space, build something, but we're at 12 years and we're already talking about it again. So there was at least some level of, we don't want to build too far into the future at that time. And so there's just absolutely no space left here to grow. It's amazing that you have City Hall, Police, Fire, and Public Works here in this campus. And by campus, I mean building. And I think that's not uncommon for a lot of cities in where you're at on your trajectory. But so our premise for the master plan was to start helping the city look at what some forward-thinking processes might be and plans, being able to plan for growth. So whatever that trajectory is over time, try and really do more than our best guess at what that might look like and how we can plan for that. I think there's an interesting anecdote at this point. The city of Granbury, we designed their city hall 20 years ago now, 23 years ago now. If you've ever been there, beautiful building. It's part of their historic fabric, their walkable downtown. Everybody loves it, and they continue to build amenities around that facility. That building was built for $4 million, and it was 29,000 square feet. If you built that thing today, it would be close to 30 at that quality. So there is, in 20 years, there is a huge cost to punting. And I know it's always hard to look at the numbers for new construction and building what you actually need because it always seems like a lot of money, but it's amazing how much cost goes up in a short period of time. And the cities that have had that sort of reaction and then done something about it get to grow into that facility for decades and decades. So I give that just as context as we go through this process. We looked at it from a phased plan because you have everybody kind of in one facility here. You have to think about it from a swing space standpoint. That means somebody moves out, somebody backfills, somebody moves out, somebody backfills. You have to have places to keep your operations online during that time. And then also being cost efficient and forward thinking at the same time. Those are not incongruent concepts. You can be cost efficient and also plan for the future. So that's kind of how we approached it there. So the process that we went through starts with a programming and space needs evaluation. So we started with a questionnaire that we have developed. I'm actually a second generation architect. So my father, Randall, started the company 36 years ago. So I grew up at the dinner table learning about how municipal facilities, particularly city halls, go together. And so we've developed these questionnaires because we know the questions to ask. We've seen cities like Granbury grow into their facilities, what works well and what is a waste of money. So we can help with that as we go. We wanted to anticipate the growth. So what's your 5-year mark, 10-year mark, and your 15-year mark? Interestingly enough, if you think about Anna, they're kind of coming up on their 10-year projections, and they just moved in last year. So the process does take a while, so you really have to be forward thinking, or you can kind of find yourself building again 12 years after you build something. The peer city comparison. So we take that questionnaire and we move into looking at peer data. So we don't just go, well, I think you need this much square footage. It's based on cities your size, cities that have been your size and continue to grow, and we validate, do they actually have the FTEs as they grow into those? So this is based on a combination of the questionnaires, because no one knows your departments better than your department heads and your staff. They usually have a really good idea of where they're headed and what the city's vision and direction is. But we also compare and contrast that with our data from across Texas. We work with cities your size all over the place.
So are we basing this then on projected full build?
Sorry, say that?
Are we basing this designed then on projected full build out of the city?
No, we're basing it on a 5, 10 and 15-year projection from the time the building is built. So we're pushing the starting point out about 3 years from now. So there's maybe positions that we talked about in this process that are like, well, we see that coming on board in the next 18 months. We just kind of include that in baseline. And then, so once the building's built 5, 10, 15 years, but it's not built, I don't know when you plan to reach full build out, but I doubt full build out is
But
15
it's not
years.
just when, it's just what that number is.
Yeah.
And let's say full build out is 25,000 people. Are we planning that we should be able to support that? Or maybe when we get to that 15-year point, when we expect that's maybe where we'll be there, we should be able to support that.
Yeah, what we have found, we used to do 25-year projections, and what we found after watching cities grow is that after 15, we can help you to 15 years. After 15 years, cities change so much. New influences come, or new highways come through town, or Toyota moves to town. You look at, we're working with the city of Taylor, Samsung, $25 billion plant came to town, changes everything. And so we find that the 5, 10, 15-year projections can be really accurate to their growth, but if we project beyond that, so that's why we don't do it necessarily on what's your total build out, because that may be 30, 40 years. So I don't know the answer to your question and where build out aligns with our year projections. So that gives us a comprehensive spreadsheet of square footages needed in each of those years. So if you studied this, which I wouldn't recommend it at this point, but we do have that. And if you wanted to study it and see how we came to these numbers, you can. There's each of those 5, 10, and 15-year projections show when those FTEs are anticipated to come online. That spreadsheet turns into kind of the recipe, if you will, that we follow for the floor plans. And so the designs, the floor plans that we'll show you that are just kind of starting points for conversation are based on this spreadsheet. So then the question becomes, where are these buildings going to go? And that is a question that will continue to evolve. It will have many conversations. It may involve real estate. And so for this part of the process, we typically kind of pick a couple that we think are really good guesses. We work with city staff to say, okay, where could one go? I've seen it where we show 3 sites in the study, and over time that turns to 3 different sites. So take this with a grain of salt. One is where we're at now. We see that this new building, this newer building that's 12 years old has some value still, as well as the rest of your building inventory that's connected to it. So rather than just wipe it out and do something new, we do think there's value in renovating this and giving it more life. It may not last as long as the other 2 sites that we're looking at, but it is one of the pieces that we have looked at. Site number 3 over on Chehan Prairie is one that, as we understand it, the developer of that site has had an agreement that they would give the city about 4 acres, was it? 4. And so the actual location within that development is not determined. So we just kind of picked one and started there for now, but it's based on 4 acres. Site number 2, we looked at a few different sites. We decided to leave that one just non-site specific, because as soon as we say what's at this crossroad, that price of the value of the land just went up 3 times, and then you get into the whole thing. So we'll leave that one as non-specific. It could go a number of places. You will see a design, but that design is applicable. We did it in a way where it can go a number of places within your city. So the first of the dominoes to fall, and we'll talk about how the dominoes would fall, what the phasing of that would be to get fire and public works onto another site, which creates a little breathing room here. That creates a really strong public safety brand and image. And one of the things that's kind of unique is fire stations need heavy pavement to support their apparatus once they're loaded up with water and all the equipment. And the other facility that's here right now with y'all is Public Works, which also needs heavy pavement for their heavy vehicles, right? So you don't always see them together, but we thought for cost efficiency, there's probably some value in using that heavy pavement, which we call the apron, both for the fire apparatus, but also for the heavy trucks. And so this is how the two sites work together. So you can see the green apparatus bays there in the middle at the top. It's a 4-bay drive-through. It has another half bay for a command vehicle or a bat chief vehicle. It has all the, and I won't go through all the floor plans of each of these, but it has all the living spaces, sleeping quarters. It does have a community room and offices for the staff there on the left-hand side of the fire station, which is at the top. The public works down on the bottom is kept fairly minimal. There's not a large anticipation of staff growth there, but having a facility that is adequate. So the spaces that are teal and yellow on the left are those are the shops and the break room area to get cleaned up if you come back from a messy job, and then a couple offices. So not a whole lot in the actual usable space or like administrative building, if you will. Everything from the hatched area in the gray. I'm just going to walk over here and show you. This area here is covered vehicle canopy. So you buy expensive pieces of equipment. You don't want to just leave them out in the elements and let them have that effect. And then a heated storage building. So that's going to hold vehicles that need to be winterized. So if you have a jet sweeper, back truck, something that holds water that will freeze, usually it's the better value to just go ahead and build a CMU building and put a little heater in there and make sure it stays above freezing.
Can I interject?
Absolutely.
A quick question?
For sure.
We're proposing an ambulance service. Is that fire station equipped for that as well?
Yes, sir, it is. So
Well, I see the bays and I was like, okay, I don't know what the breakdown is, what we have currently, chief.
It was anticipated to house the additional equipment we can foresee in that option.
For the ambulances. Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, sir.
The two at the top, so if you look at the 4 double drive-throughs, the 2 top right that are full are the EMS box.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, and we can circle back to these if you have further questions as well at the end. I'm happy to. Hopefully this one comes through in resolution. We'll see if it does. There we go. So there you can see a little more closely how the floor plan actually functions. You have your double drive-through bays, you have the half bay for the command vehicle, and then you have supporting things such as arson evidence, decon, SCBA where they fill their tanks. And then you have a fitness room that would have a roll-up where it goes onto an outdoor, a little bit of tire flipping and CrossFit and things that are, we don't do fitness centers the way we used to. They've evolved a little bit. So some of this outdoor space has become really useful in their fitness. Coming in from the top here, you have the lobby. We have a couple restrooms to support the training and community room. So that's always nice to say, hey, we're giving something back to the community. That could be CPR training. That could be a number of different things that the city can use that for. We then have the offices and the sleeping quarters for bat chief, for captain, and the chief's office down here with a soft EOC right here. This is the sleeping quarters down here. And then we have the living quarters, the bunk room, the day room, the dining room, 3 pantries, each lockable for each shift, so their snacks don't disappear. And then the locker room here, which there's some interesting nuances that we can talk about how that is actually really flexible to help you grow over time. One of the things that plagues public safety, both in police and fire, is one day they'll have a certain ratio of male to female on their staff, and that may change 3 months later. And so there was a time period where you'd be doing a construction project and they would actually be like, okay, we got to redesign it and change it before we're even done with construction. And so both the locker system and the bunk room is set up with a system that can flex the ratio of men to women. So I won't bore you with the details of how that functions. And then we have bunker gear, and there's a lot of nuances in these fire stations now. You heard about the mental health aspect of public safety. The physical health is really important to the firefighters as well. The carcinogens that they're exposed to, having double sets of bunker gear. There are different opinions on the sauna bikes, if you've ever seen those, where they actually get back from a structure fire and they can get those off of them, sweat that off before they then go shower and change into their clean clothes. So there's a bunch of best practices. I'm sure Chief would have some further thoughts on that as we get into this, but we really want this to be a healthy facility, both physically and mentally for first responders.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of a classical over the top question, and that is, you can have a Ford Escort, or you can have a Explorer, or you can have a Lincoln Town Car, or whatever. How do you adjust and get what we need, but not too much, don't spend too much on a Cadillac versus non-Cadillac?
That's a great question.
What do we call that?
Yeah, so we used to, it's funny you use the car example. We used to say you could have a Pinto, you could have a Chevy, or you could have a Lamborghini. And so there are some cities that are like, look, we have a Pinto budget, try to get it as close to Chevy as you can. But we want to have that discussion with you up front and understand what we're designing to. We have had clients that are like, we want a Lamborghini, we are headed that right. You know, Prosper Town Hall, if you've ever been in it, is second to none as far as quality goes. But there's a price tag with it. So that's a great question. And I think things like the flexibility of the lockers and the bunk rooms that I talked about allows you a lot of flexibility over time to do more with less. Things like using the apron, both for fire and for public works, is a way that you reduce really deep, thick pavement and don't pour it in two different locations. So that's a great question. It's certainly something that we look at, especially with cities your size, because you need that dollar to stretch to as many purposes.
As far as the looking, so would you say ours is down the middle, or we kind of leaning high or leaning low?
I would say yours is the first or second trim package of a Chevy.
Okay.
You're not in the fourth or fifth trim package, and we'll talk about numbers in a minute, but that's probably the best description of where I estimated your numbers to be when we get to those numbers.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Good question. Public Works, fairly simple building. You know, one of the unique things about Public Works is most of the staff that need this building don't have an office in this building. They need a building to call home. They need a building to put their lunchbox, to change the clothes, to shower if they get into a messy job. They need a place that has the tools for their stuff. But for the most part, a lot of the crews are out servicing and on calls. And so this building type looks a little bit different than, say, a city hall where it's mostly offices. This one is really focused on the break room, a place for them to gather and to eat their lunch, lockers, a place for them to change their clothes either before or after. You need a little bit of a collaboration, what we call a huddle space, for them to work with their crew leaders and get their direction for the day and go out and know what they're doing. A couple offices, and then some support space that supports other functions. Some restrooms and showers here, and then a shop. So pretty minimal. And then this as well is the heated storage. So you probably don't need more than one. We went ahead and put a second one in for your lawn equipment, for your ATVs or your gators, or just the miscellaneous stuff that would be nice to get it out of the elements if you can. But that is something that could be probably reduced down.
To replace the outside things like piles of rocks and
Yes.
stuff like
It's a good question. Let me see if I can go back here.
in a fire station, is there showers in there?
Yes, sir.
Like what's that? And then they have a
Kitchen.
they have a kitchen in there?
They do, yes. Yeah, so there's a commercial grade kitchen. It has what we call a bump out system. So if they do go out on a structured fire, that gas, when the bump out system goes on, the doors go up, the trucks are on, it shuts off the gas to that stove. Because an amazing number of fire stations in the old days burned down because they left the bacon grease on while they went to help someone else with fire. And so it is integrated with the bump out system. The showers are right here, and that's the flex shower area that I was talking about. And this is the area I think that you were talking about. There's outdoor covered parking. Those are for your trailers, your skid steers, your Caterpillars, whatever. And then this is your aggregate salt, soil, sand repository. Has a little covering to keep it dry so that when you need to get out there in the elements, you don't have frozen over rock. Right. Little tent structure over it. Yeah. All right. Let's see if it'll catch up here. It's a little sluggish. All right. Very good. So then we get to City Hall. So the fire and public works project that you saw is the one that is not site specific. It could go a number of places. We talked about a few in the design process just to test fit it, but that could go a number of places. This one, City Hall, we thought would be a good fit for the 4 acres on the developer site. And so the big white blocks just show a placeholder for future developments or whatever that developer plans on doing. And the space in between here shows about 4 acres that we could build on. So again, that could change to a number of different locations within that development. So there's a front sort of ceremonial side, and then there's some parking in the back for staff. And then there's a thought to have, I think it was a Veterans Park or some sort of placemaking park type setting that could be an amenity as well.
So at one of our joint meetings, we talked about what we wanted the city hall to look like, and it's nothing like this. So were you all aware of what that was agreed to, more or less, or what the plans might have been, or is that new to you?
So we stayed out of the what does it look like, because as soon as a picture is shown, then you have people coming and saying, I don't like that, or I do like that. And we're not at that point yet. So I think we may have had some conversations about what we think might be fitting to the city, but we did not go into what is this thing going to look like. So no, at this point, those comments have not, but we would have a very detailed sit down, understand what council's vision is, what staff's vision is. That's what we call the DNA. It's the brand and the identity of a city. And that is Randall, my father, we're actually pursuing the highest level an architect can get in the Institute of Architects. And it's based on his understanding of how to create and preserve the heritage of a city through its DNA and its architecture. So it's very important to us, but no, at this point, we have not really gone into that. So City Hall, the floor plan is, there's some unique things about it. One is that police, in order to renovate this building, which we'll talk about what that plan looks like in a minute, in order to renovate that, they're going to need a place to be during the time. So this blue space over here is actually temporary police space, so that they have a place, a good facility to work out of while theirs is getting renovated. And then this becomes your growth space for City Hall to grow into. So you pretty much have this kind of left 50% or left 2/3 that is filled out. So if you looked at this closely, you'd be like, there's not a whole lot of space to grow into. But the reality is, because we're giving police a place to be, that gives you a lot of growth opportunity. Granbury actually did that as well. And police stayed a lot longer than they had anticipated in that space. But it worked out really well. And then when they moved out, they had just like all new space for City Hall to continue growing. So it works very well. We do a lot of police involved with our city halls. And so the way this functions is you have the main entrance and the lobby, what we call a pre-function space. You do need a pretty good size when you adjourn from a council meeting. There's just a lot of glad handing and talking and networking that usually happens, and so that lobby becomes an important space for that. And then you have the council chambers. From the council chambers, you have a security exit that goes to executive council, The dais would have ballistic ratings. We have a lot of knowledge in the level of that. Active shooting has become, unfortunately, a much more integral part of how we have to think and design. So there's a lot of security measures that we bake into these buildings. And if you have more questions on that, we can surely talk about it. Then around the perimeter here, going from the lobby around, you have court, break room, and then you have city secretary leading to city manager, HR, some support spaces here in the middle. And then on the outside, you probably won't need to go through police, but we have some furniture for the cubicles to support their officers, lieutenants. We have a briefing room here that they can use temporarily while theirs is worked on. And because this building that we'll talk about in a minute would be a renovation, I don't think they would have to actually be in this space for too long. But what's nice is what we had talked about was go ahead and buy the furniture that they would need, and then they use it in this temporary space, and then they take it with them when this space is renovated, so that you sort of double dip. You're not like renting furniture or using card tables while they're there. So again, trying to be resourceful, trying to make sure we maximize anywhere spending is had. This space becomes more of a development services once police moves out. So in this yellow space here off the lobby, you have a development services conference room where you'll have a big pre-bid meeting, a bunch of people who need to find that space that have muddy boots, and so you want it easily accessible so they're not walking around your building. That space also serves as a voting room, so it's easily accessible. It doesn't take down your council chambers. It doesn't have to take over your executive council meeting room or your lobby. So we kind of thought through how that can double for a few different reasons as well. Then this is your current building. You probably don't recognize the plan, but we took your as-built and honored the walls. We studied the structure of it to see what we can do and what we cannot do. So these are a little bit different than new builds, because new builds you say, okay, well, this is what the program is and this is how much space they need. In renovations, you kind of have to meet in the middle. You say, this is how much space the building has and this is what the program is. So there's a few areas that are maybe a little bit less than program, but we felt like it was still a really functional police department that they could grow into. I think maybe way down the road, this is a facility that you could look at possibly replacing, but doing this renovation and giving them what is now used by City Hall, Fire, and Public Works should give them room to grow for quite a long time. So I would probably anticipate the bones of the structure being the limiting factor, not the space that they have. So the way this functions is what is now the City Hall. You come into the lobby here, and then there's a secure corridor here. So we have the code enforcement, we have a meeting room, we have a soft interview room, we have a receptionist. You come in and then you have sort of the administrative side of police, and you have records storage here. So we have the chief, we have a lieutenant, and then as you go down this corridor, you get to more of the patrol side of things, the evidence, the bag and tag, all the nuanced spaces that police need to have. Briefing room, report writing room, CID is in this space here, so that's your criminal investigations division, your detectives. And then we have a locker room here. I think this is one of those areas where space governed a little bit, because the flexible locker system that we were talking about, hard to fit into a building that has existing columns and structures and things you have to honor. And so this is probably a little bit closer to a traditional locker room, where it would maybe be not quite what we would want to do, but it's how locker rooms have been done for a long time. So all in all, I think it fit really well. And there were a couple bays here that I think we discovered late in the process. These are the overhead doors. These are two reserve EMS vehicles. And so I think my understanding is the EMS vehicles would go to the fire bays that we just talked about earlier. And so this pink space would actually be additional space that this building could use and grow into.
Short-term jail or holding facilities?
No, we did talk about that towards the end of the process. No jail for sure. We're thinking that that pink space, one of the things that would be good, since it already has an overhead door, would be to convert one of them into a sally port. So you can pull the vehicle in, you can get the criminal suspect out. You're really only holding somebody for a city like yourself long enough to get the paperwork, book them, and then take them to county. And so we don't really have a true detention facility. I do think the other piece we would want to add in there, if we could get that red space back, would be a holding room, which has a handcuff bench in it. You can just put them there while you go get what your paperwork needs and get them ready to take to county. So it's a good point. There are a couple things that I think we'd like to have, but we needed to get some more confirmations on that red space that's shown for EMS reserve.
What's the footprint or square footage of this renovated facility relative to the temporary space in the new City Hall building?
It's a good question. And I have that on the slide coming up. So can I answer that in just a second? So I think it's a slide after this one, so I'll be to it quickly. The phasing, you may have kind of pieced it together how we're talking about this, but I wanted to lay it out for you. Phase 1 is build a new fire station and public works, where they share that apron and that heavy pavement. Phase 2A is to build a new city hall on the developer land, get that into a space that's appropriate for it. And then the police would move into that city hall with them. So then phase 3A, while city hall and police are coexisting in that new building, we would then go back, renovate the building once they're out of it, get it ready, and then phase 3B, they would move back into that building. So this is the slide that's always interesting to get to. These are your square footages and your dollar amounts. If anyone's been to the grocery store, they know that a gallon of milk is not what it cost even 5 years ago. It's crazy what costs are. To your point, council member, earlier, you asked where we were. I think this is about a first level, maybe second level trim package of a Chevrolet. So we're keeping you out of the Pinto budget, but this is certainly not the upper end trim of a Chevy or into the luxury market. I can support all these numbers with a lot of buildings right now that just bid or are in construction with numbers that are less than 90 days old, ones that are at your level of quality, ones that are lower or higher than your level of quality. So I can answer more questions about that in a minute.
What does the term TBC mean?
Great question. Total project cost. So what we learned over many years, Randall kind of pioneered this, is we as architects and contractors, we deal with what we call construction costs. Okay, so what does the building cost? And we learned that cities kind of got, they got a little irritated because that wasn't the number that they had to write a check for, because there are other costs outside of that. Things like the engineering fees, geotechnical, survey. There are furniture costs, things that when you turn the building upside down and you shake it, whatever falls out is not part of construction costs. And so we quit dealing exclusively with construction costs, even though that's how our industry works. And we started helping cities to understand what their turnkey cost is. Now, the one thing that is not included in total project cost is any land acquisition that you have to make, because that's unknown. Every city is different. It could be 200,000 in this city, or it could be 2 million in that city. So TPC is everything minus the land. Now, my understanding is you own this facility and campus here, and you have the agreement in place with the developer. So 2 of your 3 locations are covered. So these numbers, for the most part, are pretty accurate. I think the fire station public works is the one that, depending on where you put it in the city, that number could be added to it. So square footage wise, fire station is 19,944. Now, if you start asking around how much square footage is other fire stations or other cities doing for their central fire station, you might find the number is a little lower, and there's a few reasons for that. That's not to say that that number can't come down. These numbers are not set in stone. At the end of the day, you guys have the ability to say, you know what, not comfortable with that square footage or that number, we need to hit X, and we can design to that. And there are just decisions that have to be made in order to get it there. But with it being 19,000 square feet, I've done a fire station that is 11,000 square feet. The difference is that one was a substation, so it didn't have your administrative functions, it didn't have your offices. It also didn't have 4.5 bays, but there's a reason for that. It was Dallas Fire Station number 40. Well, Dallas has a lot of stations, so they have a lot of places to put equipment, and they were not a one fire station city. There is a potential, I don't know, this would take continued conversations, but is the city going to stay a single fire station city for a long time? Is it going to add a fire station and create a substation? If it does, you probably don't need all those bays. So that's a piece of the square footage, and that's a discussion with Chief. And if this project really becomes real and starts having to answer some of those questions, we'll grind down on that answer and really talk to Chief and talk to council and forecast what it would be if it is the only station the city has versus if it is going to have a substation someday. 15 million total project cost. Again, that one is all inclusive minus the land acquisition. Public Works, I think, is one that could come down. I just didn't want to estimate it too low, but honestly, that is not a facility that needs a whole lot of decoration to it. It's pretty much a workhorse kind of building, so it can be a little bit more minimal. We just want to give them space that's adequate for their job and what they're doing. City Hall, 16,600 square feet and 14 million. Since the land is part of that, 14 million is the number it would be. The temporary space is the question you were asking about, 4,022 square feet. So I don't know exactly what they are using right now because everyone's kind of sharing in a lot of ways, so it's hard to exactly answer that. But where they would be going to, and based on the program, the renovated police building would be 12,000 square feet approximately. The cost to renovate this one, we put it about 4.5 million. So you can see you have two projects that are pretty cost efficient. For what you would get out of those, I think they're a pretty good value. And you have two projects that I think would last you a very long time, especially if you stay a one station town. Those two facilities, fire station, city hall, which are proposed as potential new builds, would last you. I mean, look, Granbury's, the end is nowhere in sight, and it's been around for 24 years. So the way we approach municipal buildings is that it should go 50 years without any substantial touch. Now, they did have to repaint the cornice because it was true wood, and we were like, hey, you do have to repaint a few things. The carpet should have been replaced 24 years ago, but it was still the original when I was there the other day. So there's a few maintenance things, but for the most part, your building's going to last you a very, very long time if you do it right.
So what's your anticipated replacement period or renovated police building?
What it would cost to do this new?
No, well, I mean, I guess that's part of the question ultimately, but I mean, at what point do you see this place having to be replaced? Because you mentioned earlier, this would be basically for $4.5 million, a temporary stay.
I think, and that's a great question, I think this part of your building is going to outlast the rest of the stuff over there. And so my guess is what you end up doing is you renovate this whole thing, and then maybe 15, 20 years, you say, okay, let's replace those pre-engineered metal and the bays and all the stuff that's been kind of cobbled together. But this piece likely can continue going in the future. So you tear down all the sort of cheap pre-engineered stuff that's been tacked on, and you would add an extension and keep this architecture and match it and make a facility that would last you the 50 years.
Then we need a swing space for all of that.
Correct.
Another few years, clear that out of there. So then ultimately, that thinking brings us to that question.
Yes.
To maybe, I don't know, if you were gonna build there, would you anticipate using this portion?
I do think this is in good enough condition, especially if it's in the next 5 years, that this could be part of an addition that's a new addition.
Replace it. Correct. And then what sort of cost? Get this done that?
Give me a second. Crunch a couple numbers. I would think to replace it for police, you're probably talking about $625 a square foot. And I'm thinking it's about 8,000 of your square feet. So that's 5 million, and that's construction cost, so times 1.25. So I would think you're probably about 6.25 million to do those portions.
Separate.
Correct.
So instead of 4.5 would be whatever 6 or 6.
But that, the 6.5 doesn't include anything to this part of the building. So,
But you would probably anticipate some changes here, right?
yes, for the newer portion, would need to be renovated to meet the security that police needs, for sure.
So we would be estimating.
Yeah.
For that,
It's always dangerous to get numbers on the fly, but I
I guess you can't hold it to them, but I mean.
Yeah. If we're saying that
We're paying
part-
$4.5 million there, or we're looking at $8.5 million for a final, whereas we're looking at $14, $15 million there from the industrial public works building. Then, I mean, if we're gonna consider those things, then, you know, probably should see some.
I think you're asking a wonderful question that is very forward thinking. We call that putting good money after bad. And sometimes the city's like, we got to stop the bleeding somewhere. Like we can't do everything new. And so we want to maximize what we can to buy you time until that next stage where you could build all new police. But yeah, a lot of times we will work with the city on a renovation project like this where it's kind of complicated just to make it work. And at the end of it, they'll be like, it would have been worth to just put the extra 3 million in and just knock the old stuff down and do it new. So, yeah, they absolutely are.
Looking at, what do you, what kind of land footprint do you think is going to be required for fire station and public works?
I think you're probably talking 6 acres, maybe 8 acres, rough estimate, but I think somewhere between 6 to 8 acres could work. Obviously, I would need a little bit more detailed vehicle count and what the projections are for vehicle storage on that lot, because that's where a lot of your outdoor space ends up taking acreage. Lay down areas as well. How much pipe do you keep? How much, steel, PVC do you need to keep on hand?
So I guess what concerns me is that we might overachieve in our city hall in particular. And you have all this nice extra space for the temporary firemen. It seems like a lot of space in there, and we could get them a temporary building while their thing is doing. Cut down on that space. Is it based on what our true build out is? Because we're a landlocked, waterlocked city. Stephen, what did we at one point figured out what our total population would ever be? I mean, max out at 12 or 15,000 or something?
Yeah, the last comprehensive plan, I think we reduced it down to about 9, but I think it's probably going to go back up with some of the new additions we've added. But I think we'll probably be somewhere around 12,000 because we're approaching 8 right now.
So did you base the square footage of the city hall on our maxed out population, or how did you come to that? We need that much space.
The 15-year projection is how we approach that. So when we sit down with all the different departments and we say, okay, what are your projections 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years from now? We get FTEs. They say, okay, I need an extra assistant or deputy so-and-so. and then each of those has a office square footage associated with.
Yeah, I understand all that, but if it's based, how much space does the city of 12,000 typically need, in office space?
Yep.
Cadillacs or Chevy.
And so that's exactly where our data working with cities your size comes in. And knowing how they have grown into those spaces, we evaluate all of those in programming the spreadsheet, and we'll look at it and be like, no, they're probably not going to hit that, so we'll trim that down and work with staff to bring that down to more of a peer facility. So I think I'll come back to this because I think while we're on the domino effect of all this, we should talk about timeline. Because one of the things that is important to keep in mind with these projects, like I mentioned with Anna that we worked with, took 7-8 years before they had everything finished from where we're at right now, moving into. So the question is, can this facility support 7 or 8 more years of service with the 4 departments that are in it? I think there's discussion about getting some temporary buildings out here to help with some of the needs as an immediate, but you imagine 7-8 years of that and you could have a fleet of mobile buildings, or have to find a temporary solution that you have to put money into to get you to that point. And so I'm going to show you 2 options here. One is what we call sequential, where you do the first project and then you design the next project and you build that project. And so you kind of just do them one by one. And the next one we'll talk about is much shorter, but that's doing the design work and construction of multiple projects at the same time. So the first one, which takes quite a while because there's 3 different moves, would take until January 2031 to have the plans that we talked about built and moved into. It starts with the first 8 months getting you to a GO bond, assuming that's the direction council would want to go. There are other routes. We'll talk about a CO bond here in a minute. But a GO bond, you would not be ready for November, nor would you want to do it with the election that's going on. And so May would be the earliest you'd want to do that. So you really don't even start design work until May of 25. And then you would have 10 months of design, and then construction could begin. That'll take about 16 months. And then if you started the next project at that same time when you ended, it'd be 10 months of design, 16 months to build. And then the last 2 phases are a little bit shorter because they're just renovation. So you have 7 months of design and 9 months to build. And so that domino of one falling before the next one starts to gets you, I don't know how long 2031 is from now, but it's what? 7 years. 7 years? Okay, so that's about what Anna was.
How confident are you going to be able to meet that timeline?
Say that again?
How confident are you on those timelines? 10 months or you?
I say 10 months because I know we can do it in 9, but I've never seen the city do it in 9. Because it takes a lot of different people having schedules coordinated and decisions made and things on the council docket to approve them at the right juncture. Can it be done in 9 months? Yes. Maybe even 8.5, but often it's 10,
These
11.
are solid.
They're very solid. 16 months is also pushing the contractor. They're usually more like 18 months. But these aren't big buildings. They're not the size I would anticipate needing 18 months. I think that could be done in 16. But if you have like a supply chain thing that comes along, that grows big time. So 16 months is, I would say, you're a good tight schedule without making it unreasonable. Simultaneous schedule. This one looks at a different option where council says, okay, let's go today. Right? Obviously not today. The first period here, I put in 12 months because my assumption is it would take a couple months for council to even get to the point where they would be able to issue a CO bond. That's not a short process, but it's a lot shorter than waiting 8 months until the next GO comes. So our portion is 10 months, but assuming a couple months to just kind of get the wheels turning. This is also discussing a CO bond. Not every council wants to go that route. I know Stephen's a very smart man and knows the nuances of what that means, and Congress is always trying to tighten the screws on it. Most of our projects now, again, the legislature continues to change. Most of our projects, City Hall, police, are done with COs. They're not done with GOs, interestingly enough. Now, I think there's a shift back towards GOs that we're seeing. More cities are starting to go that route. It just gets kind of a challenge if it gets voted down. Now, a CO can get petitioned, and that causes just as much headache. But if a GO gets voted down, there's a time period you have to wait before you can submit it again, and then you're not talking about, 3 years, you're talking about 5, 7 years again.
So the difference versus GO bond versus CO bond.
So, and there are much smarter people that talk about this than me, but a GO bond is a voter referendum. So that's going to be May or November. It's twice a year. A CO bond is council passing a bond and voting on it, and then issuing that and saying, am I explaining this correctly?
It's a certificate of obligation. Right. So the GO bond is a general obligation bond, which requires a vote from the public to get approval. Council has the ability to issue a certificate of obligation just as you would a GO. Now, it only takes, I think, 10% of the voters in the last mayoral election to force it to an election. So it doesn't take a lot of people in a place like Oak Point to force you into a GO bond. But they function just the same. It's just about the process of getting the money. The argument would be on a CO is you don't have the schedule's quite a bit tighter, and you don't have all the expenses of having the election.
Good question. So then, this assumes that for the 10 months after we get rolling, after the 2 months of figuring out the CO bond, we start the design, or we work on the design of the fire station, Public Works, and City Hall at the same time. And then we start construction on those 3 facilities. And those would be 16 months because they're 2 different projects. You may have 2 different contractors or 1 big contractor that does both. And then that means that all 3 would end at the same time. So again, you're talking the fire, which was 15 million, Public Works, which was 4, and City Hall was 14. Those numbers can also come down if you want to tighten the screws. We just have to figure out what gives. Is it quality? Is it square footage? But I do think those numbers could come down as we continue conversations with you. Sometimes council's like, you know what, 25 is not doable, but I think we could do 21. So get us to 21. And we work with staff and say, what do we have to do to get it there? So you're in kind of the control of your destiny on all this stuff, and we want to make sure it's what you guys want. It's not our town, it's our city. We want to be good listeners. And so there's a lot of flexibility as we would go into that next step if you choose. But 2026, you have all 3 of the buildings built so that you can get everybody out of this one at the same time. And then you have the 7 months and the 9 months for design and build of this renovation. So this one gets you in May of 27. So we're talking 3 years or so, 3.5 years, which is much different than dominoing them. So let me go back to this real quick. This is my last slide, and we'll open it up for any questions you may have. Where do we go from here? First is, if you do want to proceed, if that's the direction of council, then decide on GO bonds or certificate of obligation bonds. I know the city probably has relationships with bond counsel and financial advisors who can really advise you on what each of those paths mean. There are nuances to each of them, so you want to be well aware of which one you go with. Again, majority of our projects we have seen go certificate of obligation, CO bond, and with police being part of this project, there are some legislative language that if you have public safety, you can use COs, but if it's just, say, a standalone City Hall bond, you may not be able to. So some projects you can use COs for, some you cannot. So work with bond counsel and financial advisor to prepare a bond. And then once you have that and it passes, whether it's CO in the next couple months or GO in May or beyond that, then we can begin design, and then the 10-month clock of whichever schedule you chose begins.
So it seems like fast track would save money in the long run because it's done quicker. Is that right?
Yeah, doing a project 5-year, let me say this. We have seen costs in construction double every 10 years, which is hard to believe. But when we've done Granbury City Hall 20 years ago, and we've seen how that has doubled twice, there is a cost to waiting. So yes, you can have a lower cost now, but then when you build that building, the numbers I showed you today will no longer be relevant. And you'll have to get a new estimate at that point. So yeah, it is a fast track. And because it is a fast track, it saves you from the future cost, theoretically.
Preston, how many projects do you currently have going?
Right now? We've got 4 city halls. We have 3 police stations. We have a 7-story residence hall for the University of Texas State University. So public work is all we do. Most of it's municipal, but we do have a little bit of a higher ed side. And then we've got a handful of other projects like Public Works in Frisco and Benbrook, which is a combination city hall and police facility, city of Aledo. We finished Prosper and Anna. So kind of what we have going on.
Thanks. Assuming you could set us up with some tours.
With some what?
Tours of these places?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. I would try not to ask Prosper again because I feel like we've toured their facility so much because everyone wants to see it, but it's really not a great example. We try to choose projects of ours that we feel like are befitting to where a city is. And sometimes we like to even see city halls or fire stations that we didn't design because we continue to learn. You know, I'm second generation, but I'm learning every day and continuing to get better. And yes, tours are really good. We call those benchmarking tours. What it does is a few different things. It allows us, one, to understand your vision better because we can walk in a facility and if you can see it, you can point at something and go, I do not like that, don't put that in. And we're like, got it, I understand. Versus if we say, you know, we want to do a soft DOC versus a hard DOC with rollout carts and drop downs, you'd be like, I don't know. So, you know, it puts you in the driver's seat of being able to say, I like how this executive council flows from chambers into it. So yes, we can set you up with those for sure.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
Can you take a presentation? Can you take a public question?
Sure. Get it quick.
2 things. I think the city is moving toward its own ambulance service. I didn't see in the fire station where ambulances would be parked. Is that part of this process?
It is, yes.
I've heard that a couple times.
It'll catch up. The northern 2 bays of the 4 bay are for EMS ambulance, yes.
Then we have a large multi-purpose room that the council has used for the meeting, for the combined meeting once, and that the community uses, and that's for voting. I didn't see a space like that in the new city hall drawing.
So let me, if it'll catch up, you can see in fire here where we're stood here, the top left, that orange space is a training community room. It could be used for that function, but within City Hall, now that we're back to that, it also has a couple different options. One is it has this space here, which was made off the lobby to be able to be a room for voting or a multi-purpose room like you're talking about. The council chambers, cities your size, a lot of times like to do flat floor council chambers, and we'll talk to you about the nuances of tiered floor, sloping floor, flat floor. You also have this blue space once police moves out. If you're like, you know what, we need a big seminar type room, carve that out and use that.
And this is total ignorance on my part, but where does the municipal court meet now? Is it this space?
Would it be the council space in this new building?
Yes, it would. Yep, and then they have a court department here that would be able to have service windows with ballistic glass on it for security.
The only other comment I would make is that the multi-purpose room we have is probably half again the size of this council chamber. That wouldn't be the case for anywhere here unless it was the council chamber in this space.
That room's not very big. I think it's about the size of this room. But
There's plenty of flexibility here, you know, this is all.
that blue space.
And if your PD moved out, you'd have all that over on that. Right, I agree with that future use, but until that happens, I don't know where the community.
Well, again, this is not, this is an example of what can be done, but there's going to be a lot of conversation about how to actually take shape.
Thank you.
And this room in the fire station is a very large room. I think that's 50 people in that room.
So that's a big room if it holds 50.
Is that 4?
All right, Preston, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work. Very much.
So just another thought too, I did visit with our financial advisor briefly and we kind of looked and said, well, hey, look, we're just going to cap this at 36 million for all three of these buildings. I don't care, Preston, you got to build them for 36, whatever that number is. Based on our current assessed value, that'd be about 3 pennies. So
Be about what?
3 pennies onto the tax rate.
3 pennies?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so it's a lot of money, but overall on your tax rate, it's not a huge,
Yeah.
not as much as I was thinking. So.
All right.
Thank you all.
Moving on to number 20.
Thanks.
Number 20, consider an act to approve a resolution authorizing a rate adjustment of 5.3% for public services of Louisville to reflect the increase in the consumer price index,
Thank
water,
you.
sewer, trash from July 2023 to July 2024 as compared to the prior 12 months. And she's at it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff. Cheryl Brock with the Public Services. And annually, we always have a price increase based on the CPI, water, sewer, trash. This past year, it's 5.30%, and it will be effective October the 1st. We come for you to ask for approval for this to be effective October the 1st. And the residents are billed quarterly for this increase.
Ms. Brock, what was the increase last year? I was here, but I think it was about the same.
It is about 5, right at 5 as well. I don't think they have included that.
So next year should be less, if things go going as they are.
It's looking like they will be less.
Any additional questions?
Purpose of discussion, I'll make a motion then is to approve item 20 as stated.
I second the motion.
All right, Councilman Love made a motion to approve 20 and seconded by Councilman Bastich. Is there any further discussion? Is there no discussion? Then everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Any opposed? Nay.
All right, so
Roll
roll
call,
call for that kind of thing?
Yeah, let's do a roll call. Councilmember Lusk.
Aye.
Councilmember Bastich.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Becker.
Aye.
Councilmember Horatio.
Nay.
Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Kawicki.
Aye.
And Councilmember Wiley.
Aye.
Okay, so favor 5-1. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Sorry I had to wait for so long.
No problem. I enjoyed the presentation.
Learn a few things.
Okay, so on the 21, consider an act upon an ordinance to appoint Caprice Garcia as judge of the municipal court.
I'll make a motion to approve Judge Caprice Garcia as judge of the municipal court.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Pluikis made a motion to approve 21, seconded by Councilman Horatio. Any further discussion?
Question, what's this about her being a prosecutor now or something? What's going on with that?
She currently serves as our prosecutor. She's a prosecutor in several cities. A lot of these attorneys are prosecutors in one city and judges in another. It's not unusual. She currently is our prosecutor.
She's also a judge for a number of cities too.
Right.
Obviously, she'll have to be another prosecutor, right?
Right. And
About an hour by the day or whatever.
right. And prosecutors don't have to be appointed by city council. So I think she's made a recommendation to Jeff for prosecutor. So.
Yes, you know her?
I do know Caprice, yeah, she's a prosecutor in the city of Roanoke. That's where I was introduced. She does a fantastic job, and again, I know she's a judge for a couple other cities, but that's pretty much her practice, either a judge or a prosecutor. So she knows the municipal court, municipal court issues very well.
Well, she was from around here, supposedly, or-
She lives in Prosper.
She lives in Prosper.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Okay, 2, consider and act upon a resolution to nominate a candidate to serve on the Denton CAD Board of Directors.
Well, I hear the 4 people texted, one of them sent a letter about it.
No,
No, that's for
that's
the,
the TML.
I don't
This one
think-
is, you can nominate someone of your choice.
we can nominate somebody, but we have no
We have no
nominees or candidates.
No, you guys would nominate someone. You would nominate John, or you would nominate Greg, or you would nominate someone you know of in the community.
How about you, Johnny?
No, thank you.
Is there an incumbent? So do we know if the incumbent's running?
John,
Incumbent, is there an incumbent?
No. She said they were all 5 of their current people, that she gave us names. And you don't have to, this is just an opportunity to nominate, you'll have the opportunity to vote later.
So what's the time, when cities nominate people, then what happens?
Then they go up for election and you get to pick who you want to elect.
Nominations whittled down by somebody else, so
It's just a cat.
Yes,
This
this is for,
didn't count.
didn't cast it all down to like 10 nominees or something, or they have 500 people on the list?
it was just last year, we actually cast our vote for the nominees that were nominated.
Right.
yeah, that
That's what I thought we were doing here, but it's not. We're nominating people to be on the CAD.
Right.
And it's almost like volunteering somebody to be on the CAD. And whether or not they accept our nomination will be dependent on the individual we nominate.
And she
In other
said,
words, if I nominate Ratio right now, he can decline that nomination. He can put to the CAD.
You have to nominate somebody, or is it just?
you don't,
She said we did.
you do not. You can pass if you want.
All right, so,
October 14th, so it's before.
it might have been, if we knew a little previous, I mean.
This is what they provided.
Yeah, I know, it's like, and then is every city gonna nominate somebody, and how do they sort through that? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well,
I don't know,
like I
they-
said, just last
they
year,
have a
we
memo
had
explaining.
We had like 6 nominees to select from.
Wait a vote.
Right, wait, let's vote on it.
That's not what this is.
So, yeah, do we have to do anything
So do we have to-
nominate?
Well, you don't have to do anything if, you just move on to the next
All
agenda.
right, moving on. 23, consider an act upon a resolution to elect a Texas Municipal League Region 8 Director. And I would like to make a motion for Mary Sarver. How do we do this? We just, everybody vote on it, or?
You could nominate, and if anybody else wants to
I
nominate.
mean, yeah, nominate or most cities do a motion and second, and then just vote to approve that person.
So I continue with my motion to nominate Mary Sarver.
I would prefer we go with the incumbent. So I would cast my vote for John McKenzie. He actually had 2 additional documents combined as why he would still like to serve as our regional
Do
director.
we consider my motion first and then go on again if it fails, or how do we do it?
There's 2 ways to do it. I mean, one is to get a motion and second, everybody vote, or everybody nominate people and then just ask for a vote on the nominations.
I make a motion to close nomination to 2.
Okay,
We can do that too, right?
you can do that. It'd take it would take a second and a vote.
Second, you can make that from the floor.
Yes.
Okay, so I withdraw my motion.
Well, you didn't,
No, I think we just have 2 nominees.
his motion is to have 2 nominees,
His motion is, my motion was for Mary, so that's,
Which is on the list now.
but I haven't heard a second.
oh, okay, for a second Kenny.
No.
Second to your motion.
Second on your motion.
You only get to vote for one person.
You got a second for yours? You need a second?
Okay, well, John made a motion
Have a second,
to limit it to 2 nominees. Right?
Right.
I haven't heard a second on that. Maybe there is no second.
I second John's motion.
Okay.
The nominees were Mary.
Let's vote on that.
What's a subsidiary motion that you're limiting it to 2 and then you're gonna have the nominees, right, John?
Yeah. So
And then we're gonna vote for the 2?
Correct.
Pick your man. Hardball.
Okay, so we have a motion by John to have 2, Councilman John Love, to have 2 nominees, seconded by Greg Weiler. And any discussion?
Those nominees are John McKenzie and Mary Sarver.
That's correct.
Okay.
We pick one or the other, right? And then,
Correct. And the second, who seconded it? Was it Greg?
Great.
And we vote, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
And now we just vote individually.
You just have a show of hands. Who
Yeah,
who
show of
votes
hands.
for?
Okay, Mary Sarver. Sarver. I vote for that person. Okay, and then the incumbent is
John McKenzie.
John McKenzie.
And
He wins. Way to go, John.
I vote on the council, up to 5,000 people can vote. Ultimately,
Good luck with that.
I vote that.
Well, you give this over to the mayor, then she sends this in after it's signed and witnessed.
You done there?
Right. Or, I mean,
Okay, 24. And,
What's up, Bob?
yeah, we got, consider an act on the previously planned road improvements to Winchester Road from the intersection of McCormick Road to the existing pavement to the north, and we have one, public speaker request from Bob Johnson.
Did they get those handouts yet?
He's got them.
Okay.
In that
We got your
file,
email.
Scott, in the file.
Sorry, I didn't-
Oh, in the file, yeah.
You'll pass those.
Oh, here we go.
I'll try and keep it brief. Mayor and council, my name's Bob Johnson. My wife Karen and I live at 103 Winchester Road. Just want to raise an issue and put in a humble request for possibly some help. The dust on Winchester Road, it's been an issue for many years, and we just learned last week that we've got a horse now with an issue that apparently, according to the vet, can be severely aggravated by dust. My wife's got allergies and we've discussed the dust for several years. But the traffic now with the bus barn and the school has been increased. So if you get any type of breeze from the east to the southwest, or sometimes even from the south, it really just bathes our property as well as our neighbors with dust. So if there's any type of, well, let me back up. We realize the chip seal project is coming. We're kind of hoping it might be this year, but we kept in touch with Stephen and appreciate him communicating with us. We realize that's on the schedule for next year. Just looking for the possibility of some low-cost application, water, whatever else, that might help keep the dust down during dry conditions. Or an approval for me to run my herbicide sprayer up and down the road a few times when it's dry.
Would be very temporary.
I put some pictures in there that those are just happen to be some of the ones I grab when I'm out in the yard. And if there's traffic diversion off of 720 or Naylor because of a wreck or whatever, and they're coming down the road there and it's dry, believe me, it's just a non-stop generation of clouds of dust that can start drifting. You know, the roof has been coated, the cars are coated. I didn't put a picture in there when I mow and trim around the front fence. It's just like a generation of a white cloud following along. So it gets on the property and the grass. So again, I don't know what the options are, but just wanted to submit that.
So do you see bus drivers going that way? Because they promised us they wouldn't be driving that.
There's a picture of one
I see
there.
a picture of one, maybe one renegade. I mean, is it regular?
No, it's right. There's another one on the email on the back, but it's a regular occurrence.
Yeah, I zoomed in on those buses, and it's not Denton ISD. It's a longer name. I think what happens is the other schools that come there to play them in basketball or whatever, they zip out that way. And you know, Denton ISD is not supposed to be going that way with their buses.
There's an opportunity for some ticket revenue right there.
Yeah.
Can we post something about?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little more of a Jeff question. Can we prohibit buses from?
I don't know about buses. I mean, usually trucks of certain gross weight, but specific to school buses, I don't think so.
Could it be designated as no through traffic?
Maybe the bus.
Potentially, I guess depending.
I can guarantee it's not just bus.
Stephen, what would it cost to do that heavy oil that they put on some gravel roads that reduce the dust?
Yeah, they don't really recommend that anymore.
No,
It's
back home in Indiana, they used to do it all the time.
yeah, I know. There's also an option with some calcium chloride. I ran that past our engineers, and they kind of, you know, they. Long story short, so can I get back to you the 1st of October? I'm going to be out of town. So calcium chloride does keep dust down, but it has some side effects, and it's rough on paint on cars, and it's got some environmental issues as well. So I don't know if I want to be throwing up a little bit of dust if he already has animals that are having respiratory issues, and we're tossing something up in the air that
Might cause it worse.
Might cause
That's
things
why I
to
said
worse.
calcium chloride is an acceptable solution. It's not perfect.
It's
We're
not.
We're doing it for 20 years, we're doing it for 1 year, so
Yeah.
8 months.
I'd like to see October when they come back. Basically, they were leaving town, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be gone," which is really just a week. And so come back 1st of October, man. Come up with some other solutions.
Who's that, Allison?
Brian and Gay, BG engineers. So, but yeah, the first thing that they threw out too was calcium chloride as well. So, but.
What is the future plan for Winchester?
So we're gonna chip seal. When we're gonna do this chip seal, we're gonna put it in the mix and chip seal it as well.
That's the final plan for that. As we do McCormick and
That's
everything, it's just chip seal. That
Right,
was.
that's
Separate.
yeah. I mean, that's the solution for it right now. Yeah, is a chip seal.
Okay.
So timeline is next fiscal year or year?
Yeah, because there is a chip seal season. You have to do it when it's warm because it is an asphalt or tar or asphalt type thing. So you know the weather has to be warm because they're gonna spray a layer of this tar down and they're gonna drop a layer of rock across that and they got to roll it. If it's cold, it sets up too quick and so they can't get a good mix. So the weather has to be warming and not getting colder. So the plan was to put it out to bid in May so that way we'd be doing the work in late May, early June.
We already do chip seal.
Yeah, it would be the whole chip seal project for Crescent Oaks and,
It's just gonna be a change order to that project. It's
Right.
not happening right now, but it's happening in 2025.
right.
To be clear, chip seal was always the plan for Winchester back in the day, 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
2 dirt roads, one I live on City Pine Lane, which is, has a, I wouldn't call it wonderful chip seal, but it's pretty damn good, a lot better than it does.
Yeah.
You get an 8 on a scale of 10.
You're looking for a solution faster than that.
So you want something for the next 9 months? or
Because you've got a horse that's gonna be on this.
And it's, yeah, and let's put it this way. We don't know if that's a direct cause, but it's definitely, I can guarantee it. And I can get more pictures or videos. It's an issue, more than normal, and it's not just a winding residential, and it's not just the buses. I mean, we've got trucks, Cisco trucks will go up. We're not talking huge volumes, but there's some people, they gotta be going 35, 40 sometimes, to just gun it up there. And if it's really dry and the wind's blowing, it's amazing what kind of clouds get generated.
So, would there be any logic to try, speed bumps down there?
Just what I was gonna say.
I don't think they would stay.
Well, you can get the surface mounted ones, the rubber ones that.
Well, that's
It's a
one.
gravel road.
That's what I was actually. Well,
I was gonna say,
actually, I was
standing potholes wide.
kind of gonna go with the inverse. There is that we do have a lot of potholes on that
The
area.
equipment trailers, you can tell, because you can hear them when they get that.
I mean, I have no issue. Calcium chloride is not an expensive product, and you can actually spread it. I don't really have any issues with giving that a try, but I'd like to give it a week until the engineer gets back in town and see what other options that he throws out there.
I'm in favor of, as soon as possible, which would be the next meeting, make some decision, moving forward on council.
Yeah.
Or if the council needs to get involved, so be it, if not. I mean, when you say it's not very expensive, it's not a couple $1,000, $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways of spreading it. There's a liquid option, and then there's a powder option, basically. And, you can spread it with kind of not like a spreader like we'd use, but more like our sand spreader. We might load it up and spread it through that sand spreader. But the other option, I think you'd have to rent a water truck and drop it through the liquid version. So that would be a little bit more expensive, only because we'd have to rent the truck. But I don't.
So
You can buy this stuff at Lowe's.
Right,
Home
so that's a
Depot.
quarter of a mile, right?
Yeah, it's
12
probably.
feet, so.
Yeah, it's not very long.
I put low cost on there because we recognize the timing on the chip seal, so we're not looking for a miracle, but if there's a simple solution.
I make a motion to, direct staff to.
You need that?
Is that
Or just
within your spending?
to?
Couple $1,000?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so can we just say for a future item next month to have an agenda item to make us with a solution?
It's on the agenda today.
Yeah, I was just gonna do it in the next couple of weeks.
Hang on a second, Jeff wants to.
Well, this is within Stephen's spending authority, so I guess he just needs direction.
So I make a motion to direct staff to take steps to seal the road with the.
Calcium chloride or some equivalent, something.
Second.
Okay.
Can I ask what calcium chloride is, because I'm not familiar with that?
Salt, better kind of salt.
Yeah.
And what does it do?
It's salt. Humid environment, we don't go around with it.
Is that what they used to do the roads, like when I was?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
It was dark, it wasn't salty.
Can I get a restating of that motion? We're trying to write that down.
So who made the motion?
Greg. Make a motion to direct staff to, take steps to put a coating on Winchester Road using the calcium chloride.
Or equivalent products, something like that.
Yeah, that would specify calcium chloride, but yeah, short-term solution within your budgetary.
Yeah.
Follow up my chip seal.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a part of the chip seal project.
We don't have to,
Okay.
that doesn't need to be part of the motion.
That wasn't part of the, I mean, that's gonna exceed his spending authority. Okay, so what do you want done right now before the next meeting, I guess? as
Don't go short-term solutions.
This is the thing, do we even need it to be before next year? If it's within Stevens.
Really don't need a
We
motion,
don't.
I guess, technically. I
we
mean,
don't. We just need to give them direction. That, not a vote, just direction, if that's what you want to do.
What you could do is, I'll withdraw my second, and you can withdraw your motion, and just give me direction.
Yeah, that's fine, I'll withdraw the motion. Stephen, do you think?
so the direction is just to provide some
Short-term
sort of
solution.
short-term solution
Okay,
to
so-
minimize dust on Winchester.
Council agrees on giving you direction to find a short-term solution for Winchester Road.
Thank you, Bob Johnson.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, by the way, I meant to also meant to add, on this item, we had a letter or email from somebody, another resident, basically saying, to Bob, get rid of dust, we're having problems. Maybe that goes into the record. Wasn't it last thing Fair High or something?
Yeah.
So Jeff, that does not need to be a motion?
No, it does not, no.
Okay, so moving on to 25, which is future agenda items.
Hold on, I get one other question. 24, we have to be considered act on the previously road improvements in Winchester.
No.
Just direction.
So we don't have to act. We don't have to have a motion.
You don't have to, no.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so now future agenda items, anybody? You can always turn it in later.
I'd like to get a couple things on there. Looks like things are gonna start happening at the boat ramp, we're getting close to it, so let's get the boat ramp on there so we can talk about that in a public meeting. And also, I'd like to have an agenda item regarding the newsletter and possibly going back to full print without a request, just mail it. I've been asking around, talking to people, couple people, other people. You know, it's making a big difference that they're not getting it in the mail. They're not searching it out on the city website. They're not looking at it. I think it's important that we have that line of communication.
Before we decide to do that,
It was a cost effectiveness. If all they had to do is make a request and Johnny will sign.
I mean, how.
Yeah, but they're not.
That's what I'm saying, they're not making a request.
I agree.
Yeah.
We need to put it on the agenda. It needs to come out, it needs to be on your table, so you look at it, and you pick it up, and you read it. Nobody's going on, oh, I haven't seen.
This is a future agenda item. It's really not a discussion.
So
Not
let's-
a discussion right now. Yeah, we'll discuss it next meeting.
Yes.
Sounds good, right?
consider all
All right, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
We don't need one, just so move.
Adjourn at 8:36.
Good job, Scott.
Good job, Scott.
Not quite as good as being pretty good.
I mean, I missed the date of the shredder
That's
event.
not what it's about.
You in the line, you can
Saturday.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry.